Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Improving's Lunch and Learn series. Today we have Martino Liu. He will be presenting Improving Your Reading Habits. And Martino, I'm going to hand it over to you. Please use the Q&A box and post any questions, and Martino will get to those at the end of the presentation.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, so I don't see anybody here, so I don't know if people are going to be showing cameras or not, perhaps.
I'm not sure. I believe this is being recorded, so we can go ahead and continue anyways.
All right. So, well, welcome everybody to this virtual talk. It's called Improving Your Reading Habits, Reading Strategies to Grow Your Leadership Skills. So this talk was started because last year I had an opportunity to go through this read to lead challenge from this guy called Ryan Holiday. He's a very prolific writer, young and prolific. And the reason why I took this challenge is because some improvers, Daniel Chapman and Claudio, figured out a way for me to jump into that challenge and take it. It is a quite a nice story for me because I wanted to take it, but then I saw it cost some money. So at that moment, I didn't have that money to pay for that course. So at the end, they ended up giving away some bucks for me, and they paid for me. So I will be forever in debt with you guys. So thank you very much. So I took the Read to Lead challenge, and it's pretty much a 13-day challenge where you go through some, highlights and takeaways from how do we read and how do we become more aware of what we're doing when we're reading, right? So here's the objective of this virtual talk today. It's to realize that reading, actually, I'm gonna stand up a little bit here so I feel more free. All right, so we're gonna be covering a few strategies to realize that reading is not about devouring books. I think this is a common belief that the more you read, the better. In some ways, true, but we'll figure it out in a moment. And then, of course, to start reading with intention, because reading is all about appropriating the knowledge for your personal gain and the benefits of those around you. So that's our objective. So let's start with the strategy number 1. Okay, this is about starting a commonplace book. So what is a commonplace book? Most of you have books like that. I have mine here, the black one. I keep many. Like I used to have this commonplace book before I read this challenge, so that was good for me. But the general idea is to have a central place where you can collect all the information you're getting in the day-to-day. So at some point you can digest and you can, let ideas sink in you, right? So this idea of a commonplace book is the essence of starting a better reading experience, because whenever you read, there's something that you have to write down somewhere. So instead of having papers or going into the web and typing probably a tweet or maybe saving some notes elsewhere, you're gonna end up with a cloud of many different ways of gathering that information, and it's everywhere. So the commonplace book, the main idea is to centralize everything into a single source of truth for you. So every time you have an idea, you go there and that's where you write it, right? So in that way, you are more, in control of all the knowledge you are learning in your life. There's another way to put a commonplace book. Is not a book, it's more of a card index system, so index card system, where you just write cards and you just collect them. And then in that way, you can organize knowledge by categories. And whenever you want to do a presentation or something, you can go to your index card system and there will be some cues of things that you have learned in the past, and you can categorize them, you can group them, and you can move them around, and that knowledge becomes really flexible for you, and it's always at your disposal, right? So the benefits of that is improving your learning system. Everybody has a system, but it's a matter of making awareness of how do you improve your system, right? This is one way. This is a very good way. You will get rid of digital clutter. I will encourage you to try to really get away of the digital space when you're reading and when you are collecting information. Try to take notes, because the process of taking notes by hand really lets ideas sink in much better than when you type. And that's proven in many studies. So I recommend you doing that a little bit just to try it out. Then it will allow you to focus better because you know where things are. And then there's a single source of truth, so that's a tangible. You will feel lighter and you will feel less anxious and more organized in general. So that's strategy number one. Strategy number two, books you have left to read, right? So again, there's the idea that the more you read, the better. And not a bad idea, but it's not complete, okay? So here's an activity for you. I see 18 people in this talk, so I would like you to just, think about this. Whenever you are getting, books, recommended books, and then you're writing down those books because at some point you want to read them, you start to realize that list could go long, like could grow exponentially sometimes, because you're collecting titles faster than you can read. Most people have a long list, and those lists are, look very menacing sometimes, right? So the idea here is that you make this exercise where we can identify actually how many books we can actually read in our lives. And this completely changed the idea of how many books I have to read or how many books I can read, right? Actually. So I want you to calculate how many reads, like put the number, how many books do you read per year? That's simple. Some of you have an idea, some of you, maybe you don't, but maybe make a guess. If I read 1 book a month or 2 books a month, then do the calculation, multiply by 12, and there you have a number. How many books can you read per year? Either you read them in average, or you want to read them at least once a month or 2, or maybe half, every 2 months you finish one. So that is one number. And then you multiply that number to the years you have, and this is a scary thought, but I mean, it's true. How many years you have left to live, right? Let's say the average American, it's 80 years old, right? I mean, the average age at, for Americans to live is 80 years. So whatever your age, take that number minus your age, multiply by the number of books, and there you have the number. And this is the number we're gonna start paying attention to now in the future, because now that I have my number, for me it's somewhere in the 370 books. For me, that's my number. So now I know that with that number, I can go shopping and I can actually start making a budget that is very realistic, and I can be very, more intentional about the books that I'm getting, right? Because now it's not going to be any book, because now I know my capacity. Now I know which books I can actually bring onto my library and which ones are going to be, removed. So the takeaways here is to realize the yearly average reading, in my case, is 7 books, and then connect life expectancy with capacity to read. That's a highlight. Prioritize reading lists at Goodreads. For me, I'm reading, my Goodreads list, or the want to read list, got shorter, a lot shorter. So I remove a lot of books, including The Hobbit. This is one book that I always wanted to read, even though I already read The Lord of the Rings. I saw the movies. I even read the Silmarillion. So the only book that I was left to read about this trilogy or this story was The Hobbit. And it had something like a weight in me because I wanted to read, but I never took the moment to actually read it. I was kind of lazy with the idea. So after realizing my capacity to read, I said, what else do I need to know about this story? Nothing. I have reread the Lord of the Rings a couple of times. I saw the movies many times. What else I have to learn here? I think not. So I removed that book. So this is one example. The budget, right? Now you have a number. Now you can actually make a space in your house to place those books, or ideally to make room for those books you're going to be buying or getting somewhere. And now you can make a budget about it. You can save every year some money to get those books, and it will become a more intentional activity, a more experience, a more I would say a more exciting experience, because now you are really going after the ones that you really want to read. Right? And so again, oh sorry. Again, you are going to be becoming aware of how to spend your time. And of course, there's another idea here that you don't need to speed read. For those that are very into, oh, the faster I read, the better. That's okay. To read fast is good. It's a technique that you can, get and you can pay for. And there are schools about speed reading. But there's another thing about reading slow. There's another, experience when you read slow and when you actually let your brain and your ideas and your inner self connect to the ideas you're getting from that book. So when you read slow, the experience is much, much richer. That's what we're going after. We need intention, we need richness, we need experience. We don't need to go fast. That's not enjoyable, right? So that's the whole thing. So that's number 2. Strategy number 3. We have to reread a book that we love. And this is an idea that comes from, the idea that if you can watch a movie many times, why don't you read again another book that you like, right? Of course, a movie lasts just 2 hours. A book can last a few months or a few weeks, sorry. So of course that's a hassle. That's different. That's more, it requires a lot of effort, right? But here's the idea. The Stoics, by the way, Ryan Holiday, when he is giving away these highlights, he's connecting everything with the Stoics. He's a very, I would say, a follower of this group of philosophers of ancient Greece. So the Stoics believe that it was dangerous to skip from one author to the next, skimming one subject before hurrying off to another. And there he explains many reasons, but in a nutshell, it connects to the previous idea we spoke, that you don't want to be reading and devouring books. You want to be sinking ideas. You want to have the time and the opportunity to sink your ideas in, so you can really appropriate the knowledge and use it in your favor for your personal gain and those around you, right? So the slower we read, the more intentionally we read, the more specific we are about what we're choosing, because that's the knowledge we're getting, the better. That's the main idea. So reread a book you love. I choose to reread this one. This is the third time I'm reading this one. It sounds cheesy, the untethered soul and that, black horse in the beach. It sounds cheesy, but it's a really amazing book. I really recommend you, and especially since Michael Singer, the author, it's a guy we can relate to. He is a very successful programming, a software engineer. He had some success back in the 80s and 90s. He went through a very turmoil season in his life early in the 2000s when he lost his company to well, not he didn't lose it, but he was in a scandal. He came through successfully later, and during that hard time, he wrote this book. So we can relate a lot into his mindset and the way he's coming from, or where he's coming from. So understanding what he has to tell us is a lot, of we'll find a lot of coincidences and a lot of important stuff here for us in this space. So the takeaways. Again, if we can watch a movie that we like over and over, why not a book? And I remember that I can go back now and compare what I thought to what I think today. And I know that there's a lot of learning. And that learning is in its purest form. So when I compare what I learned, 2-3 years ago in this book, what I'm reading now, and how I compare today myself with my past, there's a lot of things to learn there. So that's great to do. Something great to do. So again, letting ideas sink in deeper. And there's also this technique, they call it the space repetition technique, where they say that when you space the moment when you're learning to another space where you're learning again, that learning becomes more consolidated. It becomes more, you appropriate the knowledge better. So when you're studying for a test, for instance, don't study continuously. Study in blocks of space. Like, let's say one day you study the lesson and the next day you don't do anything. So the third day you do the lesson again, and that way you remember stuff and then you let sink ideas easier. So that's a technique that they recommend because they understand the cognitive scientists. They understand how the brain works better. And this is a technique that leverages the capacity of the brain to learn better, to study better. So anyways, that's number 3. Let's go to number 4. Read a work of fiction. And here I must confess that I was one of these guys. Many people with voracious reading habits commonly make the same mistake. They hardly, if ever, read fiction. And you can take a look at my shelf and you won't find a lot of fiction books, just a few, maybe less than 10. And I feel bad about it after knowing this, but it's a reality. I thought that fiction was a waste of time. And then I learned and I figured out later that it's not true. And why is not true? Because fiction is filled with little bits of insights about the human condition that are worthy of pulling out and thinking on. I love this statement. Whenever you read a fiction book, you're not reading a novel just because you're entertaining yourself with the novel itself. It's because right there, the context, the problem, the story, the scenarios, the characters, they are talking about human conditions and they're talking about issues that happen to humans, and we are humans. So those stories really teach us a lot, more than non-fiction books, incredibly enough. But yeah, so I realized this. So I started reading this one. I must confess, I started reading, but it's so big, so hard to read this one. It's a big collection of books, but it's worth it. I'm enjoying it. Every time I read this book, it's fun. So the takeaways here is that you can enjoy great literature. You can go back and review great literature, and then you can, revise what's worth it and what's not. And again, since you have the number, since you know how many books you have to read, now you have to be really picky about which fiction books you're choosing, right? I feel relieved in a way. I felt less guilty now. I feel liberated. And this was a nice revelation. For me, it was kind of a highlight in this whole 13-day challenge. And it's like grandpa calling me from heaven saying, hey kid, relax and enjoy life. So no more business books as usual. Like no only business books. It's not going to be only about nonfiction. It's not going to be only about learning how can I improve myself and be a better person. No, I mean that's important, but that's not the big deal. Enjoy life, go out there, see how others are living their lives, novels, fiction books are there for you to really, create interesting connections. And since you are different in the world, whenever you read a fiction book, you're going to have experiences that no one else has. Of course, you will be, understanding those novels and all that, but you will be watching from your perspective, and you will be learning something unique for you. So that's a good, that's the amazing thing about reading. Number 5. Strategy number 5, it's about reading a banned book. This idea was weird, but it makes sense later. So we need to, I'm going to read through here. So read through the banned book, absorbing everything dangerous about it. So here's the thing, dangerous ideas. I'll speak about this in a moment. When you pick a banned book, take note of the reason why it was banned as well, right? We're talking about intentionality here. What were people afraid of? What were they missing? Why were they close-minded? Where might you be close-minded about different ideas in your own life? So a banned book is a good opportunity to be in touch with those ideas that challenge the status quo. And that's amazing in itself. There are a couple of books that you can see here. Most of them, not all of them were banned in their times. So the idea here is that you need to be exposed to those dangerous ideas, because more frequently than not, those dangerous ideas create innovation, and they expand the limits of your knowledge, and they make you feel uncomfortable, but they take you out of your comfort zone, and they make you see the world from a different perspective, and that's when you learn a lot. So this is a great opportunity to expand your knowledge. Go get a banned book, but again, do it with intentionality. First, you need to understand the context of the book, who wrote it and why he wrote it, and what happened, why they banned and who banned the book. Understanding all that complex situation, then you go read it. And that's how you learn a lot of stuff. All right. The takeaways here is that it's uncharted territory, right? This is where you get a lot of new information and a lot of new experiences. Another takeaway in my case is that I didn't know I have read a banned book. BNW stands for Brave New World. I read this as a kid. I found it amazing. I love it. And I knew later that it was a very, requested title in the library at college. And many people were reading it because it is a good piece of fiction, right? Now that I learned that it was banned, I know why. Now I realized why. So I got into a research about why it was banned and all that. So I learned a lot in this, finding out why it was banned, and then I reread again a few years back. I can help the free expression of ideas expand, right? When you read something that is banned, or it was banned before, now you can express the same ideas maybe and incorporate them in your day-to-day, and then help them find their ways. As Ray Bradbury says in that book, I think it was Ray Bradbury was, I think, 1988 or Fahrenheit. Oh, sorry, I don't remember which book he wrote. Either, yeah, it was Fahrenheit. Pretty much, I'm pretty sure. He says in that book, a book is a loaded gun, right? So it is true. Number 6, ask 5 people you admire for a book that changed their lives. And this is awesome. I went and do this. I went on to ask my father. I asked Curtis. I asked a great designer that I admire, who's a friend of mine, and my brothers and some friends from college. And those are the books they gave me. And I have read 2 of them, and I'm still reading another and getting the other 2. So, by the way, if you're curious, Curtis told me to read David Emerald's The Power of TED. The TED stands for the Empowerment Dynamic. So that's a book I'm really enjoying, and it's a great way to get in touch with those people you admire, those people you like, those people you love, right? Because if those books change their lives, maybe it's going to change yours as well. So that's the whole idea of this. So again, intentionality. Again, you have a limited number of books to read in your life. So be really picky about what you're choosing. Be really intentional and go for it, right? So, and actually it's a great way to bond with people, talk about these issues, and then discover new things together. So that's beautiful. So the takeaways: contact the people you admire is always positive. This is the best, and this is the best pretext, right? The feeling of expectation is priceless. That's good. You will experience that. The discoveries are great, and you will have to do this on a constant basis now. Every time you need to get more books into your library, go ask people, right? Number 7, review a book like a critic. So authors do the best with the information they have, but sometimes that information is imperfect or incomplete. I can tell you, I wrote a book when I graduated from university. My graduation exam, since I went to design school, it was about designing a product, right? So I designed a book. That's what I decided to do, write a book and design the book. So I wrote a book, and I know that writing is a very hard experience, but more than sitting down and typing, it's all about all that research you had to go, all the places you gotta go, all the people you have to ask things for questions and stuff. So the universe you have at your disposal at that moment is limited, always. So whenever you have a book in your hands, you need to understand that that book is a limited information resource. It could be really good, but it's always limited. So again, this idea that an author's work will almost always have shortcomings and failings is true. It's very true. So now you need to find those ones. You need to find the shortcomings and the failings in those books. And how do you do that? By reading with intention, right? I remember I read this book, The Design of Everyday Things. I love it. It's a foundational book for UX design. If you are interested, go for it. It's a very easy to read book. It was written in 1989. The first title was The Psychology of Everyday Things, but then Don Norman changed it to The Design of Everyday Things. And there I was reading this book, and it has a very technical knowledge, a very technical language he uses sometimes, especially in the beginning. But at the end, it's a very well round book, and I took it as a Bible, right? I took it as the guru's, guideline to UX design. And I can say now that although he was very good, he had good intentions about this book, he didn't foresee what happened later. And what happened later is that he used this term UX design or user experience design in a way which is originally well thought and well utilized, but it created a profession afterwards, and it was not his intention. So now that you go back and you can review this book, you will find a lot of loopholes and shortcomings and failings in that regard, that he's not contemplating what happened later. Of course, he didn't have the information back then, but it's a good foundational book. So now that I'm reading this as a critic, I find things that I can actually, maybe question about this, and maybe I can question the guru for the first time, right? So it's a good experience. Takeaways: You will have a more critical eye when choosing what you read and what you are reading for sure. You should start trusting less about the author sources, and you're still pondering. Well, in my case, I'm still pondering whether this is at all good approach to just reading, because I think this advice is tailored to studying. It's true. I mean, I still believe this. I wrote this last year, so I still believe that when you study, when you want to write down an article, when you're doing some research about a topic, you have to become a critic about your sources. But when you want to enjoy and see what happens and see where knowledge and or see where the author is going to take you, don't be a critic. Don't spoil the moment, right? So here you will learn when to put your hat of a critic and where to simply read for fun. Oh well, there's another idea. At this point, I started feeling that Ryan Holiday is pushing too hard on stoicism. He's very heavy on stoicism. So actually, he wrote a book about Stoics. It's interesting. It's a world worth exploring. But I felt here is when I started feeling that it's probably too much, but I will go with the flow. So number 8, replace screen time with book time. So this is a great revelation for me as well. Today, when you sit down with your coffee and some breakfast, don't watch the news. Read a book, he says. When you feel the urge to reach for the phone, don't open Twitter, open the Kindle app. When you are commuting to the office, or you are at the gym, or you are on a run, don't listen to music. Listen to an audiobook. I mean, I love music. I will listen to an audiobook only 1 day or 2 days a week. When you are eating lunch, don't catch up on your social media feeds. Read. So the main idea here is that it sounds preachy. It sounds like you are not going to tell me what to do, Ryan. So, but here's the reason. According to this survey, this is the average life of American lifestyle. So TV and mobile devices, right? The time spent in the US from 2014 all the way to 2021. That's the information we have. So we are spending 3 hours, almost 4 hours a day on our mobile devices, and almost 3 hours and a half on TV. In total, we are doing more than 6 hours a day. Take that number into account. More than 6 hours a day go to the screens. And I'm not talking our job. I'm not talking that we work with computers and we work all day in the screen. So it's crazy. This is a revelation for me. It was a thing that really blew my mind. How much time do we spend on screens? Too much. Actually, awful too much. So there's actually applications that you can download to your device to start measuring how many hours you're spending on your device. This average, three hours, almost 4 hours a day, is not gonna fit your lifestyle. I'm pretty sure you're gonna be over 4 or 5 hours a day. Pretty sure, because we work in this space. So that's alarming, right? So we need to make this happen somehow. We need to find strategies to replace our screen time with book time. So we have to be intentional now about reading. And if we are reading away from the screen, much better. I would say your eyes will, trust me, you know, I have lenses, but trust me, when you read on a book, your eyes get less fatigued when you read on screen than when you read on screen. So the takeaways. I realized that I have more time to read than what I thought, right? It's just about becoming aware of it. I think now that 30 minutes a day is a minimum for reading. 30 minutes a day. Ryan Holiday says that with 30 minutes a day, you can read up to, you know, for someone around 30 years old, if you read 30 minutes a day, you will end up reading close to 2,500 books in your life. That's a lot of books. The other realization is that I'm challenging myself to read 7 hours a week. So I'm pushing 1 hour a day, right? Finding time to read is all about trade-offs. You will become aware that to make space for reading, you need to stop doing some other stuff. And then in time, you will realize that that's a good thing. I remember the other takeaway here. I remember Tristan Harris giving a talk about the sinister, I will say, I will put it in another way, how we designers are making solutions and how developers are making solutions in the world, in the technology space, to make our lives easier. It's true, we do that, we live by doing this, right? But all social media, all other applications that you use in your phone, most of the time are not there for you, for your advantage. They are just there because remember that you are the product, right? So if you're using something for free, beware, right? Tristan Harris says this. Then the minimalists. You can watch that documentary in Netflix. Then later, Jake Knapp and John Sarasky, and now Ryan Holiday they were all telling me, stop wasting your time. So all these authors, all these ideas are about becoming more aware of how we spend our time. So that's strategy number 8. Strategy number, I forgot to erase this one, but anyways. Strategy number 9, reach out to an author you admire. And this is a time for a story. This is a very happy story for me. So the main idea here is whenever you're reading something and you make a connection with the author, of course it's a book, so there's no way for you to ask questions or to exchange ideas, right? So the main idea here is that you need to find a way to make a connection with authors, but not every author is going to reply for sure. So Ryan Holiday says, well, let me go through this reading fast. So it says, have you ever discussed an author's work with them and built on that connection? Maybe you have, some of you. Think about what you would ask the author if you were at a question and answer session that they were hosting. What kind of questions? What question? About what, right? Humans chronically underestimate the power of expressing thanks or praise and overestimate how awkward it will be. The idea here is that Ryan Holiday, as a prolific author he tells you, whenever you have an opportunity to reach an author, do so. Because as authors, we love to be contacted by people and learn about the impact we're having on their lives. That's why we write books. And it's funny, right? When he says that and you understand that point, it makes total sense. They write books because they want to give away their knowledge and their research and their insights to you as a gift. Well, not as a gift, but you have to buy it, right? So, but they are lending the knowledge to you. They're giving it away. And the first thing they want to know is how that helps you, how that is impacting your life. So they do get a lot of letters. They do get a lot of emails. They do get a lot of requests to participate in talks and give away more knowledge, but they want to get feedback. They want to get your questions. They want to get your impressions. So that's why he's saying, reach out to the author you admire. So I did that. I read this book. It's in Spanish, this one, but it's the Choice. It's called The Choice by Edith Eger. If you don't know her, she's she's a psychologist, and she survived the Holocaust in Auschwitz. So she wrote this book just a few years ago. I think it was 2018. And he tells her story there. So for me, it was a great, besides the story of survival, there's the story of why she wrote the book. And you need to read it. I'm not going to give you any spoiler here, but it made an impact in me. I make a connection with her in the book. and I felt the urge to write back to her. So that's what I did. I wrote a letter. I have it here. I actually, well, I took a copy, right? Oh, I lost it. It's somewhere here. I make the, where is it? Anyway, I was moving things around and oh, here it is. So I took a photocopy of the letter that I sent her, but in order to send the letter, I needed to find out the address, right? So I remember watching, sorry, I remember after going through this challenge, the 13-day challenge by Ryan Holiday, I took his advice. I tried to reach out to Edith, and then I went on to the web to find an address, and all I found was a phone number, and I thought that was gonna be the phone number for the editorial house, maybe, or an office. So when I called, I heard this voice. Not an American accent. It was an old lady, and she was speaking very like at a lower volume, you know, like almost like I was interrupting her sleep. It was 4 p.m. afternoon, and I know she lived in the U.S. somewhere in the Pacific coast. So I thought, but you know, picture me. I was just figuring out the way to connect to her. I found the phone, I call, and I get this voice saying, "Who's this?" What do you say, right? What do you say to the person that you believe is the author, but you're not sure? And then you're just a regular guy calling from Mexico saying, "Hey, I want to get a confirmation about the address that I found in the internet because I really want to send a letter to Mrs. Egger." Of course, I say that in a very awkward way. And she interrupted me and say, can you call me? She said, "Can you call me back? I'm busy now, but please call me." And she hung up. And I was like, what's going on? I mean, is she her really? Or maybe she was an assistant or what, or a relative, right? So I tried a moment later, 2 hours, 3 hours later, I remember. And then I didn't get anyone answering the phone. So I said, well, probably was a confusion, probably it was not her. I don't know. I was confused, but I was intrigued, right? So next day I call, and the next day again, a voice that sounds like an old lady with a very, Hungarian accent speaking. And then she, in a very sweet way, she says, "Did you call me yesterday?" And then I say, "Yes. Are you Mrs. Eager?" "Yes, I am." It was crazy. I spoke with her 5 minutes, which is a lot, to tell you the truth. And we exchanged ideas in general, who I am, where I was, why I read the book, my impressions. She was so sweet. And I told her, "I'm going to send you the book. I'm going to pay for the delivery because I want you to sign it and turn it back to me." I sent some pictures about me, my family, and telling my story. And I got her book back a few weeks later. And then I have this nice, this nice autograph and more, right? She sent me another book. The next one she wrote, actually, it came out 2020, or it was 2020 or 2019, I don't remember. And then she actually signed it again. And right there, it says that she is our grandmother. I cried. Literally, I was like, this is amazing. So I made a connection with an author I admire. She's an amazing person. You should check it out. Check her work out. I mean, she is amazing in what she does. And those two books are simply must reads, right? So that's why you need to reach out. The experience is amazing. Of course, I was really lucky to find that number and actually get her to answer the phone and really connect with me. I mean, we have established a relationship. She called me the other day, like last year, a few weeks after we made contact. She called me to ask me for my address, and she sent me the books later. And then I made friends with her physician. So it's a crazy story, but it's fun and worth sharing and worth, encouraging anybody who is, thinking about doing something like this. Go for it. It's amazing, and they feel very, grateful about this again as well. So takeaways. There's the power of 6 degrees of separation comes to mind, right? It's a great stuff. How we can connect to anybody in the world. Authors do love to hear back from people, but not for admiration only. Oh, that's right. Don't send letters to say thank you, thank you, thank you. That's good, but that's not good enough. You need to send letters to ask, to challenge, to share, to make a statement about how that work impacted your life. Not only say thanks, that's good, but they look for more than thanks. They look for the impact that the book is making in your life. You want to foster a connection with an author on topics relevant to the work in question. Yes. And on a personal note, I think cold outreach is potentially magical. Number 10, we're almost done. Number 10, memorize a poem or passage of text. This is a very cool one. By memorizing a work, we become familiar on a deeper level with the words we have previously only skimmed. Other authors' words, as Seneca, a Stoic, would say, will become your works, your actions, your thinking. So choose the poem and passage wisely. Again, intention, right? I choose this one, Carl Sagan. I'm still trying to memorize this pale blue dot. There's a specific paragraph. It's actually, well, not in the book, but it's actually the message that an astronaut told to NASA when he was watching the world from the moon. That passage is amazing. So the takeaways here is this, like, I decided to do something about a topic that has been in my mind for so long, which is to write about perspective and the multiple collaterals. Sounds geeky, but yeah. It took me for a ride in many authors' minds, and it made me think about the power that we are losing in front of technology. This precise passage, right? So perspective is everything here. So imagine you watching the world from the moon. I bet your perspective will change forever. So by reading that poem and going through the passage, it's not a poem, sorry, it's just a speech. You really get to change your perspective in life, and it makes you change your views in many ways and make, you start taking actions in different directions. So it's a good thing to do. That's number 10. 11, read a book that's above your level. Of course, anything that is above your level, besides those dangerous books, those banned books, anything that push the limits in yourself will be good. So I choose to read these 3. I already finished Artificial Intelligence by Dummies. I asked Gerardo Hernandez, one of our delivery managers. He's a very wise, intelligent guy. He told me I approach him because I know he is an expert in artificial intelligence. He told me to read this book to start understanding artificial intelligence. This was really hard to read. It was like many words, many things were not completely clear to me. I actually feel like I know less than before, but now I know something, that artificial intelligence, to happen the way we imagine it, is far away still. So that's the only learning that I have so far. But again, I'm trying to be, more comfortable in that space. The other 2 books, In Search of Lost Time, a very extensive novel. It has more than, I think it has more than 7 books, and a big one, War and Peace. But anyways, you can read any book. This is my case only, but you can read any book that it's above your level, figure it out, because that's the only way you can make progress and you can expand your knowledge, right? Yeah, the takeaways or techniques here. It's you need to dispense remembering unimportant details. You need to you have to spoil the ending. You need to understand it. You need to know why you're reading this book. Again, intention. Read the introduction if there's one, right? Most people don't read introductions or acknowledgements or any other information in the books. I always do, so it was not new to me, but it's important to read the introduction because it gives you the context of the book. And especially if it is a book that is above your level, you need to be informed of that context. So the reading becomes more, I guess, less painful. Look, there's a word, look, okay. Look out for new words as you go. Use post-it flags, you know, post-it flags, little guys like this. Reread all passages you have marked before you leave. Transcribe all your mark to your commonplace book and seek out a single book in the bibliography or the references section so you can expand that knowledge further later, right? So that's number 11. 12, it's about building and organizing your library. So again, great. Now we have the number. We have a specific amount of books we have to collect in our life. So now you can design the wall, you can put together the furniture, so you will start filling up those spaces. And every Christmas you want to go shopping and find more books every year. And at the end, you will create this amazing space of your knowledge that is going to be shareable with you, your friends and family every time they visit your space. And there's nothing much to say here. I mean, it's just about making that library happen, right? I'm pretty sure every one of you have some books here and there. So be more intentional. Be more intentional about those books and try to organize them by topics, try to organize them by colors if you want. Make sense of them. Make sense of the library you already have, and then start building your own in the future. Expanding it in the future. There is a big library called the Library of the History of Human Imagination by that guy is Jay Walker. So it's a library I want to go and meet and and meet the guy probably or hopefully, but especially I want to just see which books he has over there, because this library is it's a jewel in the US. It's right there in Richfield, Connecticut, and if you happen to be nearby, take a chance and go there and try to visit. I think they have visiting hours. That's his house actually. He has the library, which is a 3-story building. It's an extension of his mansion actually. So it's a very interesting place to go. It has been portrayed in some movies. I don't remember which ones, but some movies have portrayed this library. So I'm really excited to go there sometime in the next few years. Anyways, so this is number 12. And now, last but not the least important, is start your anti-library. What is this, you might say? I didn't know this guy, but he is the author of The Black Swan. Pretty cool book. So Nassim says this: you will accumulate more knowledge and more books as you grow older, and the growing number of unread books on the shelves will look at you menacingly. Indeed, the more you know, the larger the rows of unread books. Let us call this collection of unread books an anti-library. So the idea here is you have your own number, how many books you can read. And let's say you have 1,000 books to read. And let's say you have right now only 300. So you are 700 books short. Your anti-library are those books that you will be reading in the future that you have no clue about them yet, right? So how do you find out which books are going to be part of your anti-library by talking to people, by going into the references section of every book you're reading and finding the next books right there. So when you collect those books, those are your anti-library. So that's the idea here. And that's the idea also is that because you don't know much about those books yet, they are new to you. If you put them in the shelf, they're going to be looking at you, as Nassim is telling, in a way that is going to challenge yourself to continue on your journey to read with intention and share those learning experiences with those around you to become a better leader. So that's the whole purpose of this talk. So these are books that I have to read this year and last year, and I really enjoy them. I'm participating in book clubs about these two books, Conscious Capitalism and Help Them Grow, Watch Them Go. Amazing stuff, learning with others in book clubs. That's a strategy that is not mentioned in this virtual talk, but I'm recommending you to participate in book clubs because that's a better way to share knowledge that you learn, right? And you learn exponentially when you share and expose your knowledge with the knowledge of others. It's an amazing thing. So we have a lot of reading to do in improving. Speed of Trust, must have, must read. Conscious Capitalism, again, must read. The others are options, but very good reads. So my invitation for you is to go read, to lead your way into uncharted waters of the history of human knowledge. And in doing so, you will be better equipped to lead others. Thank you very much. I think it's right in the hour. I wish I could see people here, but I don't see any faces, so I hope you are there. So thank you for your time and
Hey, Martino.
enjoy the weekend. Yes.
We do have one question if you have a few more minutes to answer that.
Sure, let's go.
Okay, so the question is, what is your advice for new readers and how can they help this as a habit?
Start reading. Like right now, go Amazon, shop a book that somehow you know that it's interesting for you, because you know they said books call you. You don't call books. You don't say I'm gonna read this book. No, actually, somehow it's funny how the universe conspires against you. In this case, is in your favor. The universe is actually putting those topics in front of you because you are in that space. So whenever you have a book that you feel that you need to read, go read it right now. So my advice is start now. The best time to start reading is now. And the strategy is right now, you know, I mean, if you are a beginner reader, just have fun. Just enjoy what you're learning, what you're discovering. It's like going watching a movie. Just have fun, and that's entertainment. So treat it as entertainment, and the more you read, become more aware of how you appropriate that knowledge. So putting your, getting your commonplace book, get a system for you to write down those ideas. So the moment you open the book and you start reading and you find a word, a statement, an idea, or because you're reading something, you are remembering something else, go there and write it down and then continue reading. And after you finish the book, go to your commonplace book, review everything you have put together, and then just let it sink in. Take a moment to understand what you learned, to reflect, and maybe write something about it, and then go to the next book afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martino.
No problem. That was the only question?
Yes, that was the only one.
Okay, so we can wrap it up then, I guess.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Martino, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.